Welcome to our next session to the Modern Artist Club. Start to paint your way. I'm Tamás Erdődi, and this day we will experiment with a snow theme and a snowman, or maybe a snow couple or a snow family, depending on how you like to portray this character. And the idea behind this is, one, we have snow finally, so it's a really great surprise. After years, basically, we have proper snow. And the other one is, I feel that when we can create characters, that's a really fun aspect of painting. And sometimes there are possibilities where we can turn a lifeless object into a character, but other times I've had a lot of fun with placing the eyes and maybe give life to a lifeless piece of paper. So it's a really fun project, and the last benefit is you can make it as a gift. And I painted this some years ago for my wife, and she's really happy with it. And I feel that it's basically a simple painting, but in the meantime it represents our family. It's not really about how they are painted, but what they represent. If you like to create it for yourself, or maybe as a gift to a loved one, it could be a fun idea to count with characters. Start with one first, and we can later extend that based on the techniques we learned to a whole family. First, start with the main snowman figure. Some months ago we created this project where we experimented with the shading of a sphere, and this exercise might be a bit boring, and I can imagine some of you would hate this exercise, but once we can turn it into a character, it could be a much more exciting, playful project. The main idea is to have a sphere and count with the light direction. So we should have direct sunlight, and in this exercise we had a little bounce slide from the floor, so that's why we have a little bit of lighter area on the side, and we can even try it with colored pencils. But that's for a sphere exercise. If you like to watch that, you will have that inside the archive. But now let's count with the snowman. Ideally, we should have a frame around our character, so if you have an A5 paper, roughly these proportions could be enough. I will tear this off and or maybe start on another one just so we have the full process. How I like to count with a project like this usually is roughly have a floor somewhere. I'm experimenting with the graphite, but I'm not a huge fan of this. But because of the ability to erase, I will try to work with graphite now. It's, I believe it's a 2B or maybe 1B pencil. Because of the snowman is basically free section, we can divide this into 3 areas. And we can have a larger sphere, a middle one, and the top one. And depending on how much space we have on the top, we can create the cylinder. How to sketch these forms is an interesting exercise on its own. Try to use a full movement, so the more gestural you can sketch, the more fluid your spheres will become. But it's not a big deal if they are a bit wonky. They can be a bit squashed, so maybe they can have a bit of an egg shape. Try to have a circular motion, and when you feel that, okay, now I found something where it's nice and circular and not look like a potato, then you can maybe strengthen some of those lines. Where they are overlapping each other, we shouldn't go too deep, so I like to erase those invisible lines in the end. So don't press it too hard, because the goal is not to create a pencil drawing, but I like to paint over the snowman. And depending on how much space you have on the top, we should make a cylinder. And what I found really interesting is if we can create a little bit of more wonky lines, that makes him a bit more friendly. So a little bit of rounded form that could make it a bit more funnier. And also for this cylindrical ending, because of the perspective, and we are looking up on this line, shouldn't be a straight line, but a little bit rounded. How I like to sketch these guides basically is create a full circle. So it's much easier to sketch a full circle and erase the invisible line, what is on the back side, later, and you will have a much more much smoother line and maybe more in perspective. Don't stress about if the proportions are a bit off. The scarf, that's a funny addition, and for that we should have maybe just some it's a rounded form. Yeah, I think that when the ending is in front of the scarf, that makes it a bit more interesting. So that's it on the other side. Okay, and I feel that the hands might not be so interesting in this case. I would rather play with the background a little bit, how we have color in the background. How you are feeling in the cool?
Okay, I'm set.
Okay, cool. Then the 1.0 version is to just use watercolor, and I feel that maybe that could be enough, or maybe faster, and we can jump into the more complex gouache if we like to make changes. Now soften these lines with rolling over the page, or maybe you can use your standard eraser. The goal is just to keep the visible lines. So of course these overlaps shouldn't be visible. Maybe here we don't see that, because this subject will be mainly white and maybe a bit of shadow. I feel that it's much faster to just focus on the shadows. Of course we miss the character, the eyes and the carrot nose. What I feel is I have a little bit of it's somehow not in one line, but I feel that maximum I will be able to fine-tune this with a little bit of overpainting. Okay, so how to think about the placement of the eyes. For a snowman, it isn't too complicated, but how I like to think about this spherical object is somehow place the eyes. So if you like to make him look into one direction, maybe I will mark the center line here. We should place the eyes a little bit closer together. So in this case, maybe start somewhere and just mark them lightly and have the carrot. So as you can see that they are a little bit towards the right side, and have the happy little smile. Okay. I'm purposefully working on this more textured paper. I like to experiment how this works. I'm trying to imagine a light source, and this light source should dictate the shadow placement. And just like with the sphere experiment, in a project like this, the face should be the most important. So ideally, we should have the light on his face and place the shadow side where it's less important. So that's how I'm counting with the shadow will be on the left side. Maybe I will show you on this plate. For the shadow color, you can use either the ultramarine blue, or if you have cooler blue, I would mix color between the two and maybe add a little bit of red, just so it's a bit more warmer. You know, this exact color could be manipulated in many different ways, even with sketching over with the colored pencils, so it's not too critical. One thing I like to keep in mind that the scarf could be a red color, that's for making it a bit more contrasty, so try to not paint over that. This shadow should appear mostly under the surfaces. And I'm trying to soften it as we are coming to the center. So adding more water, that will create a transition. Okay, I feel that just as I have this right consistency on my brush, I will paint over the scarf and add the red color later. And shade. Add the shadow to the cylinder also. Okay, one little tip that if it's a 3D form, we can keep a little bit of highlight, so don't paint the just keep a little edge around the cylinders, you know, the thickness of the cylinder. Maybe here also. Okay, and of course my kind of like mantra is to ground the object, so I like to show that we are in space somewhere, so the snowman shouldn't float. This shadow could be lighter because we don't want to focus there. And like previously, I really like this spot illustration feeling where we don't force the background or don't really connect the background, but the edges fade to the paper white. And as my paper is really dry and it feels like the water is not really traveling inside the paper. The other paper was a bit more flowy. I feel that I could try to add the scarf, and for that I will mix first a light orange color. Maybe you can use a light brown with a little bit of yellow. And the idea is we have the light side of the scarf, and where it fades into the shadow, we will add more red. I've had some a bit too much blue within my brush, so I will try to remove that. It feels a bit dirty. So with a clean tissue paper or a rag, you can remove the colors easily. Let's see what happens with the red. And to blend the edge, I will use my finger, which is clean, so I know that it will not add any color. Usually I would add like much more paint, but I feel that this project might be enough with a softer color scheme and a bit less color might help it, because when you are outside on a snowy day, most of the environment is white, and the strong sunlight makes it so crisp and light. Everything is so light that we can show this effect without adding too many colors. We can add the carrot, of course, with the orange color again. And this is the most basic shading, where we have one color for the light, and when it's a bit more dry, we can add just a tiny bit of shadow under that, and we can achieve a really simple shading. I feel that I would love to add some warmth again to the cylinder. I'm not sure if it... Okay, I would make it a hat instead of a cylinder with the brown, because that adds a bit more warmth to the image, and it connects with the scarf, so that would be a nice addition. So it's not just this warm color is not appears in only one section, but you know, in other areas too. So for that, you can be a bit more adventurous if you feel like, maybe with stronger colors. This could be a really fun challenge. And of course this color could come back on the underside also. And as usual, as with the usual, with watercolor, you can totally be a bit more looser. So it's totally fine if we are not painting every detail exactly. So it's much more handmade looking if it's a bit more, a bit less synthetic, or I don't know. I like more when we see the creation and how some of these strokes were laid down. Okay, and I can add this darker shadow color under the scarf also, because, oh yeah, that makes it pops a bit more. Oh yes, and now maybe we can have some folds. If you like to add the fold, just try to make it so it's not going all the way through. So the folds are revealing and then disappears. So it should be a little bit of yeah, just a little line. Okay. I feel that it's almost there. Maybe the last thing could be the eyes. And for that, let's mix the blue with the red. And create a dark purple. Okay, and we can paint the eye. If you imagine a little C shape, let me show you. So we have a tiny spot left for the reflection, or make it a bit more shiny. Shading for the carrot. For that, we need a shadow under the form. how you are progressing in the meantime. I'm really curious. Ooh, looks great. Oh, cool.
Soften the hat because it was a weird shape. It looked like an ear or something, but yeah.
It looks great. Like it.
Well, freedom.
Thank you for following this session. Share your painting with us and don't forget that there is more. We have the full family version inside the Modern Artist Club, and if you like to paint that, check out the Start to Paint Your Way, the Modern Artist Club under the video. See you inside and happy painting!